If you're an estate agent wondering how AI is going to impact your business, this episode is a must listen. Today, I'm joined by Mark Burgess, CEO of Iceberg Digital, and one of the leading voices on AI in estate agency. We're diving into what's coming, what's already here, and how you can use AI to future-proof your agency without losing that human touch. Hope you enjoy the episode. Mark, welcome to the podcast. So, for listeners who may not know yourself or Lifecycle, can you talk us through your journey from starting in business initially to then having sort of multiple businesses? And obviously, you're an author, recognized speaker. So, what's the journey there?
Cool. Okay, I'll try and give you a short version of it. I was an estate agent when I first left school. I had a few dead end jobs first, fell into a estate agency. Then I became a mortgage advisor. Then I became a property investor. And after a while of doing all of that, I went to work in the city in recruitment. Didn't really like recruitment, but I could see the technology making its way into IT recruitment. I started my first company in 2001. I've been an entrepreneur ever since. So I've got around 30 years experience in and around the property industry because most of my businesses were focused around that industry as well. I've built seven-figure businesses, eight-figure businesses. I've written three best-selling books now around AI, marketing, and data. And obviously, I've got Lifecycle. Well, Iceberg is my company. We supply AI technology to estate agents, trying to help them future-proof their business and make more profit.
But apart from that, you're quite quiet.
Yeah, other than that, I don't.
That's quite laid back apart from all that stuff, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a longer version. I've had like TV show on Sky. I've been featured on Forbes. All kinds of crazy stuff that I never would have dreamed would happen to me when I was working in a kebab shop. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster journey.
How do you ever write a book on AI? Because I would feel so when I did book number 2, I'm not up to book number 3 yet. I'm not up to your level at the moment. But I was thought about putting AI stuff in there, but I was like, as soon as this comes out in 6 weeks' time, 2 months' time, it's almost instantly out of date sort of thing. So how do you kind of publish content about AI in that sort of format without it sort of being out the window by the time you finish pressing send?
Yeah, I think from experience of writing books, like pretty much it doesn't matter what you write about. As soon as it comes out, you wish that you could put some new stuff in there. The AI side of things was really more because there's a lot of hype around AI, and when you really dig into it, as somebody that owns a company that builds AI and has been working on AI for way long before ChatGPT was a thing. I wanted to just take away some of the bullshit around it and try and get people to have a clearer understanding of what AI does and doesn't do. Because if you can do that, then you can start to really plan how you could use it for your business. You can start to get over the idea that, the Terminator might come and shoot you. And you can just start to see the wood from the tree, if that makes sense.
And how, because if I did a survey of estate agents today, I would imagine this is very much finger in the air survey. I would say, how do you use AI in your business? And they'll go, it writes my property descriptions and it does my occasional social media post. And that'd be it's all very sort of text based. So it's very much I can't bother to type up this thing for 20 minutes or can you reply back to this email? It's all very sort of language model stuff. So what are they missing out on by just using it that way?
Um, well, at the moment, they're probably not missing out on a great deal. But it's kind of crazy, really, isn't it? Because the way that you say that, like, yeah, use it for property descriptions, use it for a bit of this, a bit of that. Like, we've already got over it. How crazy is that? Like, because just the fact that it can write property descriptions that are usable, and some people would argue they're not usable, um, it's kind of mind blowing. But we're already over that. So we want to know what's coming next with AI. There's a couple of things really. You A lot of people put AI at the end of something that was already doing this job before AI was around, just to grab people's attention. So, what most people, the biggest breakthrough, if you like, in AI was large language models. So things like ChatGPT, Gemini, all of that sort of stuff. The large language models, and what large language models do is, uh, in a in a testing environment whereby they build machine learning, they taught a computer to be able to understand text and numbers, a bit like predictive text in a way. They put in millions and millions and millions of sentences, and the computer got to the stage where it could predict what words would come next after these words were spoken, and therefore would start to be able to have conversations with people. And then at that point, they had built a large language model that could understand text and numbers. It comes out of machine learning and it goes into production, and that's it. It's not learning anymore at that point. It's not improving. It's finished. And that's what people use when they use something like ChatGPT or Gemini. And that's what most people are talking about when they talk about AI. And then you get tools that do things like create images, or there was this sort of trend a little while ago where people would make an action figure of themselves, plastic wrapping and all of that sort of stuff, and say, AI did this. AI is not really doing that. What's happening is that you've got a piece of software, let's call it Photoshop for ease, because most people know what that software does. And Photoshop makes the picture, or Photoshop makes the action figure. AI can perform the task because it understands text and numbers. So when you asked it for something, it could break that down, and then provided that there was some sort of integration that had been built with a software that makes images or action figures of people, it could perform the task. But no different to how you could have done it if you knew how to use Photoshop. There's nothing AI about it, really. I mean, that's a very basic way of explaining it. But you need a software that does perform this task in order to do these things that people are going, oh my God, this is mad. AI is going to follow up all my leads. AI is going to convince all my people to list with me. And no, AI is not going to do that. The software is going to do that. AI can do the text bit of it, but it still needs a software that's connected to, say, WhatsApp, or a list of all of your sellers, or a list of all of your prospects, or something, some sort of software. And so going back to your original question, where are they missing out? At the moment, probably not missing out anywhere, but where it will start to change is very similar to the process that people already go through with their software, whereby they might have multiple softwares to do individual tasks, and it becomes a little bit difficult to manage. AI will be the same. AI is the most simplest way of looking at it at the moment is it's like a new operating system. Instead of needing a mouse to point and click and perform tasks, you could just tell the computer, I want to do this, and it will go around and get it done for you. And it will be much, much easier for you to perform that if everything was inside one central ecosystem, because you wouldn't need to go somewhere and train an AI to qualify your leads and then get that information and put it in another system and train a different AI to do the next part of the process, and then another system for another bit, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So at the moment, in answer to your question, probably not missing out massively. As things move forward, they'll suddenly find, oh, shit, like I haven't really got the foundations to use AI the way that some of my competitors are using it.
So is it more about, if I'm getting my grasp on this correctly, is it more about interconnectivity with software at the moment? So it's almost like a Zapier, for example, that obviously at the moment, instead of, you going to Photoshop and you doing this, or you for researching this on the internet, it's kind of just being the middleman there, sort of effectively, it's kind of going out these different things for and kind of connecting it up. And I guess as AI gets better, it just increases that connectivity effectively. So it's all sort of within one ecosphere.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. AI doesn't connect. AI doesn't increase it. It will just make it even more complicated. And so even things like Zapier, APIs, and all of that sort of stuff, they just don't work that great. If you look at the best example that most people have experienced would be, say, the difference between Android and Apple. When someone has an Android phone, it seems like it's all one big thing. But what's actually happening is you've got hundreds of different manufacturers that all make mobile phones, and they all use different components in each of those mobile phones. So even if you've got a Google Pixel 7, your Google Pixel 7's components and my Google Pixel 7's components are the same chip, but they were made in different factories. So the components inside it, like, have got different, were made in different factories. So you've got all of these different manufacturers, and all the manufacturers have got different components in them. And then there's an operating system that's supposed to run all those different devices called Android. But Android actually has to be slightly different for the Google phones than it is for the Nokia phones. And so when all of the apps are made for the Android store, they have to make multiple different versions of those apps in order to work on the Nokia phones and on the Google phones. So even though we're both on Android, when I get an error on my Google phone and you're on a Nokia phone, good luck to me. Like, even someone on another Google phone might not get that error because it could be something to do with the components. So it seems like an ecosystem, but actually you just can plug anything you want in. And because Android's like open like that, you can literally plug anything you want in and get it doing whatever you like. But when you get error messages and when you get problems, you're on your own. If you look at the Apple ecosystem, every single uh, processor comes off of the same honeycomb chip. Like, every single piece of the phone is made the same way. Every single phone's running pretty much the same operating system because you need to upgrade, and upgrades are free. Every single app is built for the same app store. And so if I get an error, pretty much everybody else is getting that error, and Apple can solve it straight away. Because of that, Apple will only need to build one artificial intelligence to run across their whole ecosystem. And so eventually you'll be able to ask it something about anything that's going on inside your phone, and it will give you the answer. If you tried to run artificial intelligence on an Android phone, whose Android phone does it know? Like, how does it know what you've got connected? You could go and connect up some weird app that they've never taught the AI about. You could go and you might have a Nokia phone. Someone else has got a Google phone, and so therefore maybe the calendars run differently. So that's what I'm talking about. At the moment, estate agents they're in a piecemeal system. They're using a CRM that's probably a little bit out of date just to manage transactions. They might be using another piece of software to do email marketing. They might be using another piece of software to send out proposals. They might be using another piece of software for instant valuations, another one to qualify portal inquiries. Which one is the AI? Who's delivering the AI that works across this ecosystem? No one, probably. Each of those companies will come up with their own AI. And so how will you train it to work like one of your employees? Will you train all 7 of them? And what if one of them acts slightly differently to the other one? What I'm talking about is estate agents need one central system for all of their data to sit in, which is Lifecycle. And then you can do anything you want at that point because the AI knows everything. It's in that one system. And as a technology company, we can then build it for them and it will just work.
But is that the future sort of goal then for Lifecycle? Is it to kind of, as these new features, I suppose, best way, or technologies come out, is to kind of just bolt that underneath one sort of umbrella, so that if you're a Lifecycle customer, you get a lead come through, click on a certain button, it produces this for you, click on that one, it takes that out for you, sort of thing. So it's all kind of underneath one umbrella as opposed to having a disjointed system.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how people are using it at the moment. So we have Lifecycle. If you imagine Lifecycle as maybe the brain, so people would use it like they would probably consider how they use their CRM to manage transactions. But it's also doing the marketing side of things for them already. So it's taking leads, it's finding out who's got houses to sell, it's putting those people on nurture journeys, trying to generate listings. So it's trying to generate money as well as they're using it for their everyday tasks. But because of that, there's loads and loads of interest in data in there. It's been built as a big data system with a CRM that sits on top of it. So all of the data is nicely split up underneath into tiny little silos, so the AI can make sense of it. We then have a system called Predict, which comes out in the next few weeks, which is a prospecting side of things. So that's scanning all the portals, what's available, and it's looking through the database and it's matching up. You know this person already. And you've got 17 buyers that match against their house and you've sold 3 things nearby. Do you want to start prospecting them? And then you've got Uzair, which is our AI assistant. So at the moment, that's doing those basic tasks like you mentioned, like writing property descriptions. It's completing vendor care for them, making sure their vendors get updated on what's going on. It's writing blogs for them because obviously Lifecycle is a marketing system, so it's putting out content on social media, doing newsletters, that sort of stuff. But it can also start to analyze where did all their leads come from? Or even if they were just out and about, for instance, and they might go, oh, I need the details for uh, the owner of 27 High Street. It could go and retrieve them for them, or things like that. And that will just start to increase the jobs that it can do over time. And then we've got Neuron, which is our website company. And the way that the website company works, because of everything that I explained before, is when someone hits the website, Neuron scans through Lifecycle faster than you can blink, and it rebuilds the website based on what that it knows about that person. So if this person has already had a valuation, it doesn't bother showing the book evaluation buttons. It starts to show testimonials. If we know that person is on the market with another agent, it starts to show messages about what to do if you're not happy with your agent. It's tracking all of that as they interact with those messages. It's going back to the brain going, huh, this person's looking at what to do if you're not happy with your agent, which is then talking to Predict, which is moving them up the chart saying, hey, in your prospecting, this is the person to talk to because they're on the market with John Smith Estate Agents. You did evaluation 18 months ago, and they're just on your website reading what to do if you're not happy with your agent. So can you see how that would be impossible to construct using APIs? It just wouldn't work. And so because it's all in one ecosystem, it works seamlessly, and you don't have to be a super technical geek to set anything up. It just works out of the box like an Apple ecosystem would.
And how much better is very much a very great question, so I apologize in advance. How improved or how much better conversion do you get? So for example, instead of me coming to the website every time and it says, do you want to book a market appraisal? If it was at step 2 or step 3 and say, it's almost welcome back, Chris, but no, not. How much better conversion do you see across your marketing if it is sort of the directed towards myself rather than just a sort of blank, here you are, welcome to our webpage?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's very subjective, I guess. All marketing is, isn't it? Because people go like, oh yeah, but that person was going to do this or that person was going to do that. But if we just try to break it down and not make it like me bragging about how great this system is and someone else trying to come up with like, yeah, but it could be this or it could be that. Let's just look at it from a common sense perspective. How does the world work? How does marketing work? You may already be familiar with Google's zero moment of truth, but for anyone who isn't, back in 2015, Google released a white paper called the Zero Moment of Truth. And they looked at 15 years worth of browsing data. They looked at, they teamed up with some universities to look at how the brain works to find out why people buy certain products. We know it's not based on price. So what is it? Why do people buy certain stuff? Why does someone choose Apple over Android? Why does someone choose Android over Apple? And what they found was that it boiled down to this thing called 7-11-4. So you need to spend 7 hours with somebody, have 11 touch points, and see them in 4 different locations. And when you do that, a part of the brain called the hippocampus opens, and you or the product moves over into this know, like, trust side of the brain, like going under the rope at a VIP event. And at that point, the person is going to buy the product. They then start to justify it to themselves logically. Maybe they make an Excel spreadsheet of what money they can save and all of that sort of stuff, but they're buying. So the goal in marketing is to 7-11-4 people. And we know this because how many times have you sort of thought to yourself, oh, I'm thinking about going on holiday here. And before you know it, you're seeing ads pop up all over the place. They're trying to 7-11-4 you. There'll be products that you're considering buying at the moment that you're stalking that you haven't quite 7-11-4'd yourself on yet. But when you do, you'll buy the product. It's brilliant when you want to convince your wife or somebody to let you make a purchase. Start sending them some videos and some content, and they're just 7-11-4 themselves. So, but the important point here is that to 7-11-4 somebody, the content has to cut through all the noise because there's so much content out there. You can't just send random stuff to people; they just ignore it. So if I'm going back to your website and it says book evaluation, but I've already had I had a valuation of you 8 months ago, and there's this whole page about when the company was started and what you can do for me, and I already know all of that. I'm not going to be interested. The same with like sending out email nurture journey to me. If it's just generic, I'm not probably going to open it. I might get a little bit of a touch point just from seeing it fall into my inbox, but I won't necessarily interact with it, which won't help me with the 7 hours and all of that sort of stuff. So the fact that it can be more personalized is what all sophisticated companies are trying to figure out. Estate agents obviously are a little bit behind with all of that sort of stuff just because of the way the technology's been over the last 20 years, but the facilities are available to them. So when you say what sort of a difference does it make to companies, you can speak to any life cycle agents or go on our website. We've got case studies. I've got people on there whereby there's a guy who, when he joined Lifecycle, their company used to turn over 150 grand a year. They're one office, and they're not in the most expensive part of the country, just outside of Wales, in just below Liverpool. And out of the same office now, they turn over 700 grand. We've got endless stories of it, so much so that people must think we're making it up. But yeah, it's inevitable, really. It's not a thing that we invented. We see it. We all see it in our everyday lives. We're surrounded by it from technology companies. It's just that most estate agents, they don't do it because they have a CRM system that is built around just performing a transaction, and that's where the problem starts. When they talk about the fact that they've got data, they're talking about names and email addresses. Like that's not the data that is required. What's required is the intangible data that you can't see. Who's on your website? What are they looking at? How many times have they done it? When are they usually active? All of that is the data that we need to augment the names and the email addresses to really move the dial in the business.
And most of our audience for the podcast are usually self-employed estate agents. So I guess that, having tools like this set up sort of allows people in those sort of positions kind of punch well beyond their weight class is probably the best way of putting it. You can be a one-person band and, you've almost got the marketing team, you've got the sales team, you've got the IT department sort of underneath your umbrella sort of thing. So everyone's kind of going, wow, you're really good at marketing. And actually, you're kind of just leaning on the CRM system quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people when I talk to them about Iceberg, or maybe they respond to one of our ads or things like that, say things like, "Yeah, but stage is a human-based business. It's a people business. We wanna talk to people face to face. We don't want a robot doing it." And that's just uh, the wrong end of the stick. Matt Giggs is probably a good example. I mean, I use him as an example because a lot of people know who he is. When I first met Matt, it was at an event where we were both speaking, and I was speaking about technology, and after me, he was speaking about people, and staff and all of that sort of stuff. And he saw it as that we were talking about two different things. Now Matt's a client and he uses all of our products, and the reason he does that is because our products allow his team to do the human bit. Before, they were making phone calls to voicemails. They were speaking to people who didn't want to be spoken to. They would have to make 100 phone calls to have one good one. Now, the system says, hey, you might want to speak to this guy. He's on the market with another estate agent, and he's reading what to do if you're not happy with your agent. I mean, it's ready-made for Matt to do his thing and speak to somebody and use his skills, right? So there's a saying from, I think it's the guy who started the Four Seasons, that you should systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. And that's all that we're doing. The technology empowers you, like you say, even as a one-man band, to be in contact with, it wouldn't matter how many people were in your database. You could have 50,000 people in your database, be a one-man band, and be in contact with all of them on a personal level permanently, and know when it was the time for the human to step in. And if it got to the stage whereby there were too many instances where the human had to step in, obviously you would just expand your business. It would be a no-brainer for you. And that's generally what happens with companies that use Lifecycle.
Mm. Talk me through, is Uzair, is that how you pronounce, how you pronounce your,
Uzair.
Uzair. So I Googled online, it is Arabic for helper or strength, I think it was.
That's right.
There we go. I did my research. So talk me through, because Uzair 1 came out and then Uzair 2 came out. What were the big differences? What were the kind of the learnings from the first version that came out to then that you improved and kind of put it into the 2.0?
So the first version, everyone was really caught up on the GPT hype. It was a big thing at the time, and people, like you said, wanted a way to be able to write property descriptions. So we came up with 3 specific tasks that an estate agent could kind of perform, kind of like pressing buttons, if you like. So they would go into Uzair and they would say, I want to write a property description. They wouldn't type, I want to write a property description. They would press a button saying, I want to do a property description. It would ask for the address, and then it would create the property description for them based off of the bullet points, that sort of stuff. They could do the same thing. They could say, I would like to create a vendor care report, get the address of the property. It looked through some of the statistics, how many viewings there have been, how many times people have looked at it online, what portals it's advertised on, what the viewing feedback has been, that sort of stuff. And it would create a vendor care report for them, excuse me. Or they could choose to create a blog post for their content. And that was it. It was quite restrictive. There was no back and forward. It wasn't like using a chat GPT where you could then say, oh, not like that, do it like this. So then with Uzair 2, what we did was we built our own specific large language model, whereby you can start to upload documents to it. So you can start to give it documents around what your USPs are, or what your brand is, what your tone of voice is, anything you want really, like what your call to actions are, what your how you usually close deals, anything you like. So it's got that information. And then it becomes more, and then now it's more conversational. So we launched it with just the same functions that we used to have in Uzair 1, just for people to get used to the nuances of, instead of pressing a button, getting used to the idea that, well, now you can have a conversation with it. So now you could say, I want a property description for this property. It could write it, and you could say, not like that. I don't want you to use those kind of words. In fact, I never want you to use those kind of words again. And just for people to get used to that. And then as people are getting used to that, we'll start to introduce more functions into it, whereby people could start to analyze things maybe that they used to do in stats. So some of our agents, for instance, might come to us and say, oh, I really need this statistic in Lifecycle. And without wanting to be annoying, we'd start to say, why do you want that statistic? Well, I want to analyze my staff's performance. Why? Well, because I want to know who's doing well and who's not doing well. Why? Well, because then I need to give them training. Well, what sort of training? Oh, this sort of training, da, da, da. And we'll get to the end result. And we'll go, right, okay. So the whole point of me putting this stat in is for you to be able to monitor what's happened in the month, who's performing well, who's doing well, and give them pointers on what they should do differently. Yeah. Okay, great. So now I know that. I can just teach that to Uzair and put the stats in Uzair, and you can literally just go in Uzair and go, what's happening for the month? And it'll give you all the information. And it'll tell you what should happen with these people. And maybe it can even ask, do you want me to message that person to tell them to go onto this training course? So because it's all in one central system, what can Uzair do is kind of limitless. We have this product at the moment that's just in beta testing, whereby the estate agent just comes out of their appraisal, says, this is the summary of the appraisal, build me a proposal. It builds a whole web-based market appraisal, says, do you want me to send it? They send it. It sends it over to the person, and then it's tracking when they're looking at it. It's letting the person know. That the options for it really are kind of mind-blowing. When I spoke earlier about the whole predict system that we've got, whereby it's looking at the portals, it's looking at what's on the market, and then it's alerting the estate agent and saying, you could close this now by saying this, because it knows how many buyers they've got. It knows which ones are first-time buyers and who's looking at that exact location and what they've sold. Uzair 2 can start to get to the stage whereby it could run those messages for them if they want to. The estate agent doesn't have to send the first WhatsApp or send the first email saying, hey, noticed you've been on the market for 6 weeks and that you haven't had any interest yet. I just wanted to let you know, like, these are our USPs. We've got a different method of doing things. We've currently got 18 buyers that match against your property. We've sold these ones nearby. So I think, we could probably help if you're open for a chat. AI could do that for them. But we just have to get there slowly, because, not everybody's comfortable with that level of involvement from the AI to start with. But that gives you some idea as to the difference between the two, Uzair 1 and Uzair 2.
And I sort of, you can shoot me down here if that's okay. Because in my head, if someone said to me, where do you see, a state agency in, I'll say 5 years time, pick a nice round date, 5 years time, it is, you have an instruction and you press the button and it'll computer with your voice, obviously, phones everyone and says, "Hey, hope you're okay. It's, virtual Chris here. I've got a house coming on the market. Do you want to go for it? Do you want to have a look around it?" sort of thing. I press another button, virtual Chris gets uploaded into a video, and I do a nice little like, "Hey, welcome to this property. It's coming on the market," and then it goes to the social media sort of thing. And it's just, the production value just is, I've AI'd myself effectively. That's probably not a good way of phrasing it, but I've cloned myself in pretty much every way possible, from my voice to my face to my actions to my height. And I then go, right, produce a video, introduce this property, saying I've got a house coming soon. Right, produce, phone my database of 150 people. Right, that's done. Thank you very much. Right, match that out. Thank you very much. Now, am I am I miles off, or is that the direction you think it might be going in?
Um, well, a lot of that is already being done. I mean, forget the cloning part. Lifecycle. The weird thing that we found when we were building Lifecycle is that there's not really any such thing as matching in a state agency. It's a weird thing because people think there is, but the systems are still based on the systems that were built pre-iPhone and all of that sort of stuff. So matching in most of the state agency softwares it falls down because there's no real kind of Google Map style matching. It's usually like you tick a box to say they're looking in Southampton,
Yeah.
like that means anything, right? And this is the price band, and this is the bedrooms, and that's about it. And then someone has to manually go in and press a button, and it runs this big match. And so no one does it, and the public don't find it useful, so they just let people find their properties on Rightmove. So what we did with Lifecycle was we built a real registration system where people could say pinpoint where they want to live, a bit like how they would set up their Rightmove alerts. That goes into the estate agent's database, and the database takes care of the matching. And it happens 24/7, 365. A new property that matches comes on, it gets matched. A new person that registers, they get their matches. And so that system is already working, and that alone makes such a massive difference because 20% of those registrations have got houses to sell that are not yet on the market. Another 10% have got houses to sell that are on the market already. Lifecycle already knows which areas the agent covers, and so it knows who to highlight to people. So that side of things is already working. So then you're talking about video cloning yourself. I'm not convinced by that, to be honest. I know it looks great at the moment, and it's pretty mind blowing when you see it. But again, it's not really AI. So if you think back to what I was talking about earlier, let's take it on an image level rather than a video level. People have always, for the last 20 years, been able to Photoshop. I could Photoshop my head onto your body. And so now AI can do it for me. I could have done a deep fake if I knew that, if I was skilled enough to do it using After Effects or whatever it might have been. But now AI can do it for me. And so I sort of feel a little bit like back when I was an agent, the phone was the only option. You'd pick up the phone, you'd speak to people. You still have people now that say, get on the phones. But the reality is the public don't usually want a phone call. Some people do, but the majority of people just, they don't want their phone to ring. I don't even know why it's called a phone. People they don't want it to ring. So they would probably prefer a useful WhatsApp messaging. People say, that people don't want to talk to a chatbot. I don't think people mind talking to a chatbot. They don't want to talk to an annoying chatbot. But if I could speak to BT via a chatbot and it wasn't annoying, Jesus, I'd rather do that than sit on the phone for an hour. So AI has sort of led us back to this point whereby, oh my God, it can make phone calls for us. But I'm sitting here personally thinking, who wants a phone call? Why have we gone back to phone calls? I didn't want a phone call from a human. I definitely don't want a phone call from a robot. Or WhatsApp, maybe, if it's useful and it's all easy for me, or something else. And I kind of feel a little bit similar with the cloning side of things. Like at the moment, the cloning isn't quite good enough to get away with it. But when it is good enough to get away with it and it becomes saturated, I just wonder whether as a kind of, I don't know, as a consumer, whether I'll just switch off to video and believe all videos cloned now. So when I'm getting endless videos from people I've never met that are using my name and talking about my website and talking about the functions of my business, will I just go and genuinely genuine salespeople will have to find a new method, if that makes sense. Like video was almost like, well, this has to be genuine. The more video I can do, the more genuine I can be with people. If that goes away, then maybe people will have to find a new method. So I'm not sure that it will work exactly like that. I do see it as all of the administrational work that an agent has to do at the moment will just disappear. However that looks. AI is very good at administrational work because it understands text and numbers. So if you think back to the first version of computers, you had to be able to code in order to do anything on a computer. And then around Windows 95, graphical user interfaces came along. I could just use a mouse to click icons, and behind the scenes, it would do the coding for me. I didn't need to be able to code anymore. This is like another version of a user interface. I don't even have to use a mouse anymore. You don't even have to know how Lifecycle works anymore. You'll get to the stage where you just pick up your phone and say, "Hey, Uzair, I've got an appointment at 26 High Street. Make sure that they get a proposal with the comparables in. Make sure that they get a proposal with all of our USPs in it, and then blah 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 blah." And then come out of the appointment and say, "I spoke to them about this. We're both football fans, so include that in our summary and do this and put them on a nurture journey." That's how it's going to work. But the value for the estate agent will be in your database. What have you got that John down the road can't do for me? And that's where it starts to come back. For me, it starts to come back to registrations. You have to have a reason as to why buyers want to register with your estate agency. As crazy as that sounds, you have to have a reason, because if you haven't, if I come to your house and say, "Yeah, I can get you onto Rightmove, like, and we'll see how it goes." So what? Whereas if I come to your house and I say, "Look, you know, everyone talks about Rightmove, but there are 1 million visitors a month to Rightmove, 12 million visitors a year, let's say. In a good year, there's only 1 million transactions that happen in the UK. So that most of the people that are visiting Rightmove are going to be a complete waste of time to you. What you need in order to make sure that you get the best possible price is 2 serious buyers that are interested in this property. If we just put it on Rightmove, you could quite easily get 10 viewings around here from people that are not going to do a transaction. We feel like we're struggling to sell it. You feel like you're struggling to sell it. Before you know it, we're reducing the price. We haven't even had a serious buyer around yet. What I can do for you is we have a system whereby people can register directly into our database in order to learn about properties 2 weeks before they hit the portals. And what that does is it puts the barrier to entry in place, so that if you're just browsing, you don't bother filling that out. You just wait and look at stuff on Rightmove. But if you're serious, you fill it out. So I've got the cream of the crop of buyers that are looking in this area, and I can take you onto this iPad now, and we can put in your exact location, the details of your house, and the price that we're talking about. And I can show you that I've got 19 people that are looking for a house like this in this area, in this price range, and 5 of them are first-time buyers, and 4 of them have got nothing to sell. So shall I speak to these people first about your house before we tell the entire world what it's on the market for and waste our time? Or do you want to go with somebody else? And they're mine. They're in my database. So that's where I see the value of a estate agency going forward. What is your intellectual property? What's your methods that you've got that nobody else has got? And what's the data that you've got that nobody else has got? And if you can't show that and prove it, just like every other business, I think you're going to be in a race to the bottom.
And if you were, obviously, it's kind of a garbage in, garbage out sort of situation. So if you're sat with a really small database, and let's say you've got, I don't know, 10 people in your database, obviously you've got limited supply there straight away. If you're listening to this and you're like, right, I'm starting from scratch today, or Mark, I've only got 100 people on my database currently, I want to get it to 1,000. What are some of the ways you think people can effectively grow their database so they've kind of got that data there ready to go?
Actually, it happens quite naturally, because you just do the normal job of trying to get properties on the market. All those properties go on the market, and you put them on the portals, and inquiries come in. But every inquiry that comes into Lifecycle automatically is getting replied to by the system saying, "Thanks for the inquiry. Before we can take any further, we need to get you all of your details. We need to make sure that you're qualified." And so they're automatically starting to build their database of buyers that they've got sitting inside their system that way. Obviously, the more that you want to spend on adverts, telling people about your heads up property registrations, the more that you want to spend on adverts for ebooks, the more you want to spend on adverts for instant valuations will all help build the database. But I do still feel like, from looking at the statistics, the number one way of building a database is to have listings. So it's still that catch-22 when you start an estate agency. How do I get listings? Everybody kind of knows the tried and tested methods for when you first start, and you just have to go out there and try and steal other people's listings, right? But you want to try and get to the stage where you get past that. And the way you get past it is by people registering into your database. 20% of them have got houses to sell, using systems that tell you who to call and when to call them at the right time, because you're busy most of the time doing other things. And you start to pick up the stock, and then you start to be able to convert the stock, and then obviously the numbers start to speak for themselves.
And final
But
question.
actually, just on that, sorry, just on that point, Mike Robson from Avocado made a great point to me once when he was on one of our podcasts, because I was saying to him, some people say I haven't got much data, so I'll use Lifecycle maybe when I've got a bit of data. And he was saying it's just mad. They used Lifecycle from the beginning. And he was saying, like, even if you had one prospect, one person in your database, surely that person, you'd rather that person was constantly being nurtured and you knew when was the right time to speak to them and so on and so forth, rather than what you're going to do, get to the stage where you've got 1,000 people that are not getting nurtured, that you don't know when to speak to. And you might as well you're going to start again at some point anyway, pretty much. You might as well start that way from the beginning, even though it might seem like an expense to go with something like Lifecycle, is probably more expensive than a basic CRM. Surely the whole point that estate agents are making to people was it's about value, isn't it? It's about what am I going to get out of this at the end of it. But I can show you companies that went from 150K turnover in one branch to 700K turnover out of the same branch. That's got to be worth it, hasn't it? So I think, yeah, any business, you have to start slowly. You have to have some investment to build it up, but then you have to know the goal as to what you're building towards.
I definitely think the expression about planting a tree 20 years ago was the best time. Otherwise it's today. It definitely comes to mind. So, final question for yourself. You've been very generous with your time. So, for anyone who's listening in thinking that the T1000 is going to come and take their job, should they be worried?
Um, I think the conversation that I have with my staff about this, because we've got people that work in support, and AI can do that job. We've got people that work in sales, AI can do that job. We've got people that work in administration, AI can do that job. Developers, AI can do some of that work. Designers, all of that sort of thing. So the conversation that I'm having with my team is that you have to work out how to work with AI in your role. If you don't, what's going to happen is someone's going to come along that does your role, a person that can do it much more efficiently because they're using AI. And that is what is going to steal your job. Because let's take support as an example, or let's put it into estate agency terms. Let's say your job is to qualify all the leads that come in from the portals and get viewings booked. Okay, so you're doing your best. You're making lots of phone calls, sending lots of emails. You get lots of voicemails. You're staying on top of it as best you can. And then you sort of think, "Oh, I don't know anything about AI. I'm not going to get involved with it. I'm just going to carry on doing my job." And then along comes a new member of staff. Let's say that they're, quite into technology, and they sit there and they get told what the job is, and they go, "Oh, do you mind if I use a bit of AI to help me with this?" And the owner sort of goes, "Yeah, I don't know, knock yourself out." And suddenly, like, they start qualifying 5 times as many people as you're qualifying. They start booking 5 times as many viewings as you're booking. What's the owner gonna do there? I mean, it stands to reason they're going to turn to that person and go, "How are you doing that? And can you do that for my whole department, please?" And the economics of it are gonna mean that there's no point in having the person that doesn't use AI. So I'm not sure we need to worry too much yet about the whole job's gonna go. But yes, like, the people that are not using AI are gonna go. All of the AI that we use inside our company has to have a line manager, a human line manager. It has to be checked every day on what it's doing, the responses it's giving, like this knowledge base. It has to be updated every day. It's not a big deal when you get into it, 20 minutes a day, but every day it has to be checked and trained. It's a bit like just having loads of trainees. So be the person that's got loads of AI trainees and become super valuable to the company, as opposed to the person that just goes, "Oh, I don't know, this works. I'm just going to carry on doing this and hope for the best."
Mark, you've been an amazing guest. I think you need to have a sit down after this to just to get it all into us. You've been absolutely brilliant. So thanks. So we'll have to have you come back in the future in like a couple of years' time and see where it's all up to, sort of thing. So you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing.
Yeah, no problem at all. Like I said, I'm sorry if any of it come across like an advert for Lifecycle. I want there to be some value in there for people. So like whether it's Lifecycle, whether it's another system that you're using, I guess, my message would be like, just start to immerse yourself into what could AI do for my company? Because at some point soon, even though you might not be able to visualize what it looks like, that wave will just hit. And if you haven't started putting anything in place, then you're in danger of just getting washed out to sea.
Start paddling, start swimming. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.